I've been a long-haul truck driver for the past 11 years, and in that time I've driven through just about every kind of American highway you can imagine: snow-covered mountain passes, sweltering desert roads, neon-lit city interstates, and quiet country lanes that seem to stretch into infinity. But there's one road I will never forget. And the truth is, I can't even find it on any map anymore. It was October of 2016 when I first stumbled across Hollow Creek Road. I was hauling a shipment of appliances from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. Normally I'd stick to the interstate, but I was running behind schedule. The dispatcher had called me twice, pushing me to shave time off my ETA. I figured if I cut through some back roads, I might save half an hour. That was the worst decision I've ever made. The sun was already setting when my GPS suggested an alternate route: Hollow Creek Road. It didn't look too long on the screen. Just a winding stretch cutting through dense forest, reconnecting to the highway on the other side. As soon as I turned onto it, I knew something felt wrong. The pavement was cracked, weeds pushing through the asphalt. My headlights caught the shapes of old, rotting road signs I couldn't read anymore. The forest grew thick around me, pressing in on both sides. And strangest of all, I didn't pass a single car. For the next 20 miles, it was just me, the endless woods, and a creeping feeling that I was being swallowed whole. It was almost fully dark when I noticed a house on the left side of the road. At first I thought it was abandoned, but when my high beams swept across it, I could have sworn I saw a light flicker inside. It was a two-story Victorian, paint peeling, windows boarded in places. The yard was choked with dead trees, the kind of house you'd expect in a horror movie. I should have kept driving, but curiosity got the better of me. I pulled my rig to the shoulder and cut the engine. The silence was suffocating, the kind where you can hear your own pulse in your ears. I stepped out, gravel crunching under my boots. The air was damp, smelled faintly of rot. That's when I saw it. A faint glow from the upstairs window, like a candle flame struggling to stay alive. "Hello," I called out, half expecting no answer. But the light flickered once, like a signal. Inside, the house smelled of mildew and damp wood. My flashlight cut through thick layers of dust. Furniture sat where it had been left decades ago, draped in white sheets. On a table in the front room, I found something that made my stomach twist: an old, leather-bound journal. Its pages were filled with shaky handwriting, entries dating back to the 1940s. The writer, a man named Richard Henderson, wrote about his wife, his children, and then about the thing in the woods. "It comes at night, stands at the edge of the trees. The children say it whispers their names. Margaret won't sleep anymore. I nailed the windows shut, but I still hear it." The last entry was dated November 3rd, 1946. It ended with just 3 words, scrawled in frantic ink. "It's inside now. I heard it before I saw it." A faint creaking sound from upstairs, like someone shifting their weight on an old floorboard. I froze. My flashlight beam trembled as I aimed it toward the staircase. That's when I saw her. A figure standing at the top of the stairs. A woman in a long, faded dress. Her hair was dark, matted. Her skin was pale as paper. She wasn't moving, just staring. I blinked, and in that fraction of a second, she was gone. But the sound of footsteps began again, this time running straight toward me. I bolted, crashing out of the house and back into my truck. My hands shook so badly I could barely get the key into the ignition. As the engine roared to life, I caught one last glimpse in the rearview mirror. She was standing in the middle of the road, watching me leave. The sky opened up with a sudden downpour, sheets of rain hammering my windshield. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the trees in blinding flashes. And in one of those flashes, I saw figures. Not one, not two, but dozens, standing in the woods, lining the road, silent, still. Each time the lightning flashed, they were closer. I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles went white, flooring the gas pedal. But the road twisted endlessly, doubling back on itself. It felt like I wasn't going anywhere. At one point, I swear I saw my own truck's headlights ahead of me, like I was chasing myself in an endless loop. That's when the road ended. The pavement gave way to gravel, and I found myself back at the house. No matter how far I drove, it was waiting for me. This time, the front door was wide open, and a voice whispered my name. I should have driven away, but something pulled me inside. Some force, heavy and irresistible, dragging me down a hallway I hadn't noticed before. It ended at a door, old wooden chain shut, but the chains were broken. I stepped into the basement. The air was damp and freezing. My flashlight beam revealed stone walls, rusted hooks, and a chair. Strapped to it were old leather restraints, stiff with age, and scrawled across the wall in black, jagged letters. "We are still here." I heard breathing behind me, slow, heavy. I turned, and standing there was the woman again, closer now. Her face pale and wet, as though she had drowned. Her eyes, empty black sockets, locked on mine. Her mouth opened wider than humanly possible, and a voice that wasn't hers spoke through her. "You don't leave Hollow Creek." The next thing I remember, I was running, out of the basement, through the house, into the rain. The forest erupted with whispers. My own name, repeated by dozens of voices, overlapping, urgent, mocking. I don't remember how I got back into my truck. I don't remember how I started driving again. I just remember the road finally spitting me out onto the interstate, like it had never happened. When I told other truckers about it, none of them had heard of Hollow Creek Road. I searched every map I could find, paper maps, Google Earth, GPS archives. It doesn't exist. But I know what I saw, and sometimes, late at night when I'm hauling freight through Pennsylvania, I'll catch a glimpse in my mirror, pale face, watching. Jason Miller had been a long-haul truck driver for nearly 5 years. He was 27, single, and used to the lonely nights spent staring at the endless stretches of blacktop cutting across the United States. The road was his life, his home, his cage. Some nights he loved it, some nights he hated it. This night was one of the latter. It was early October, the air crisp, with a heavy, damp feeling that told him rain was on the way. Jason was driving east on Route 40 through rural Ohio, hauling a trailer full of packaged electronics. The contract was simple: deliver the load by 8 a.m. the next morning. To make it on time, Jason had decided to drive through the night. The problem was he was exhausted. He'd been on the road for nearly 16 hours straight. His eyelids grew heavy. His vision blurred from time to time, and he'd caught himself drifting toward the shoulder more than once. Every trucker knows when it's time to pull over, and for Jason that moment was now. But where? The road was empty. Miles of trees on either side, the occasional distant farmhouse, and the occasional dead animal flattened on the pavement. Not a single open gas station in sight. Then, out of nowhere, Jason spotted a glowing neon sign up ahead through the mist. Pine Rest Motel. The sign flickered and buzzed with electricity, a pale green glow bleeding into the foggy air. Jason sighed in relief. "Finally," he muttered. Jason pulled his 18-wheeler into the cracked parking lot. The motel was small, maybe a dozen rooms, built in that classic 1960s roadside style. Its paint peeled, the doors were weathered, and most of the parking spaces were empty. At the far end was a dimly lit front office. Jason climbed down from the cab, stretching his stiff legs. The night air smelled faintly of wet earth, and the chirping of insects was oddly muted. As he walked toward the office, Jason felt eyes on him. He glanced at the windows of the rooms, but the curtains were all drawn tight. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. Inside the office, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A frail old man sat behind the counter, hunched over a ledger. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his eyes seemed a little too large for his thin face. The man looked up, forcing a small smile. "Need a room, son?" Jason nodded. "Yeah, just for the night." The man slid a key across the counter. The brass tag attached read, "Room 6. The man's voice was low, almost a whisper. "Room 6. Don't leave your window open." Jason blinked. "Excuse me?" The man just smiled wider, though it didn't reach his eyes. "You'll be fine." Room 6. Slowly, deliberately, Jason sat up, his pulse quickening. Maybe another guest got the wrong room? He stood and moved to the door, peering through the peephole. No one was there. The hallway stretched empty and silent, the buzzing neon light from outside barely illuminating the crack under the door. Jason frowned, unlocked the door, and cracked it open. Still nothing. The cool night air seeped into the room. Jason shut the door quickly, locking it again. He shook his head. Probably some drunk messing around. But deep down, something felt wrong. He climbed back into bed and pulled the blanket over himself. His heart eventually slowed, and his eyelids grew heavy again. But just as he began to drift off, he heard something else. A faint scraping sound. Coming from the window. Jason froze, his breath caught in his throat. Slowly, he turned his head toward the window. At first, he saw nothing but darkness. But then, movement. A figure stood just beyond the glass. Tall, motionless. Blacker than the night itself. Its head tilted ever so slightly, like it was studying him. Jason blinked, and it was gone. Jason didn't sleep much after that. By the time dawn broke, he was groggy, irritable, and desperate for answers. He went back to the front office, where the old man was pouring himself a cup of coffee. Jason slammed his hand on the counter. "What the hell was that last night? Someone was knocking on my door, and I saw somebody outside my window." The old man looked up, unfazed. "Room 6. It always happens in room 6. Jason's brow furrowed. "What the hell do you mean?" The old man took a slow sip of coffee, then said, "Most folks don't make it through the night." Jason stared at him. "Are you messing with me?" The man didn't answer. He just smiled, that same unsettling smile. Jason stormed back to his truck, determined to leave. He climbed into the cab, turned the key, and nothing happened. The engine didn't even try to turn over. Jason cursed under his breath. He tried again, and again. Nothing. It was as if the truck itself refused to leave. The second night, Jason spent the day trying to get his truck to start, but it was useless. His phone had no signal. He considered walking to the nearest town, but the highway was empty in both directions. As night fell, Jason reluctantly returned to room 6. He left the lights on this time and sat in the chair by the bed, trying to stay awake. Around 3 a.m. it started again. The knocking. Knock, knock, knock. This time it was louder, more insistent. Jason grabbed the motel's heavy lamp and gripped it like a weapon. He didn't look through the peephole this time. He knew no one would be there. Then the window creaked open by itself. Jason spun around just in time to see shadows spill into the room. They weren't human, but they had shape, form. Humanoid silhouettes, darker than darkness, with glowing red eyes that pierced through him. They slithered across the carpet, their movements jerky and unnatural. Jason raised the lamp, but his arm froze mid-swing. His muscles refused to obey. One of the figures leaned close to him. Its face was featureless, except for those burning eyes. And then, in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once, it whispered, "Stay." Jason screamed, dropped the lamp, and bolted for the door. He yanked it open and sprinted into the hallway. The endless hallway. But the hallway wasn't the same. It stretched on forever. Door after door, identical, disappearing into infinity. The lights above flickered, buzzing like angry hornets. Jason ran, his footsteps echoing off the walls. No matter how far he went, the hallway never ended. He passed room 6 again and again, over and over, as if the motel had looped itself. Behind him, the shadows followed. Slowly, patiently, their footsteps made no sound. Jason's chest burned. He felt like he'd been running for hours, but still the hallway stretched on. Desperate, he threw himself against one of the doors. It swung open, and he found himself back inside room 6. The escape. The shadows closed in around him. Jason's vision swam, his ears ringing. He stumbled backward, his hand brushing against the cold window glass. He had one chance. With every ounce of strength he had left, Jason hurled himself through the window. The glass shattered around him as he crashed to the ground outside. When he looked up, the motel was gone. He was lying in the gravel lot beside his truck. His hands were cut from the glass, his chest heaving with every ragged breath. The neon sign was gone. The office was gone. Nothing remained of the Pine Rest Motel. Jason scrambled into his cab, turned the key, and this time the engine roared to life. He floored the gas and didn't look back. Aftermath. Jason never spoke of what happened to anyone. Not his friends, not his employer, not even his family. Who would believe him? But every time he drove that stretch of highway at night, something strange happened. The CB radio would flicker to life, even if he had it switched off. Static would fill the cab. And then, through the crackling, a voice would whisper, "Room 6 is waiting for you."